have a S style guitar on the bench right at the moment with a tri-colored sunburst. Beautiful finish. This is a crate guitar, an Electra. It was purchased at a local antique shop a guy owns here in town. Paid $40 for this guitar. Pretty dirty, dusty, and the one major flaw I can see in it right now is the pickup selector switch. I plugged it in and it doesn't work. So the pickups work. I can make the pickups work in each. I can kind of feel each position, but there's no contact being made in here. So either going to repair the switch or replace it. I've got a used guitar in the back that's got parts and stuff all taken off of it, and guess what? It has a new 5-way switch in there. Humbucker, single. Probably can clean this one up, give it a bath, check all the electronics, make sure everything's dialed in, stick string action, and make sure it's holding tune, and send it off to be played for years to come. So if you do this to your guitar string, this is the dumbest thing you could do to a guitar. Number one, if you break a string at a gig, you're going to be a half an hour with no tools, because no guitar players take a tool with them to a gig. I mean, don't do this. It's done on all 4 of these strings, and all it does is waste time. It does nothing for the tuning. That is absolutely useless to do. Not to mention, every one of these strings has a big old loop in them here, and when I tried to tune the guitar, it kept slipping out of tune because that loop would slip. So in effect, they made the guitar worse by doing that. Just don't do that. That's foolish. Here's the loop that I was talking about. You can see that, and if I pull on this B string, you'll see that loop cinch up. I mean, it doesn't take much. Made a job really much more difficult, and kept the guitar from ever being able to hold tune. Probably somebody that didn't know any better did this. I would imagine that most guitar players know better, but just for a piece of advice, please don't do that. This guitar with a dry rag, and just kind of knock the dust off of it. And, you know, if I give it some elbow grease, I can clean up a little bit more, but all these lines and stuff I'm hoping I can get off of there with a little more elbow grease and maybe some polish. A few scratches in the finish that should be able to come out of this. Should be able to make this thing look pretty darn good. It's in really good shape. There's one pretty good ding on the back side of this that we're not going to fix. And the plastic is still under the switches. That'll all get fixed today. Get that off of there. Here's what the fretboard looks like now. A rosewood fretboard. It looks like it's a it's a single piece. Nice big thick chunk of rosewood. Really nice grain that you can't see because of all the goo on the fretboard. There it is. We'll get all that stuff cleaned off of there. And get her back in business. Gotten inside here. Here's our 5-way switch. I cleaned it. It appears that this piece of Bakelite or whatever they've used on this has softened up, and it's just flexing. You can see that's doing that. I cleaned it with some deoxit. Still behaving in the same way. It doesn't stop at any detent points. So the thing got bent or something, damaged somehow. The yellow wire goes to the top portion of this control. The blue goes to the center, and the red goes to the bottom. You can see those white wires coming off of the pickup bundle. So now I'll be able to refer back to this for rewiring the switch up in the same configuration that it's in. we have some controls for the volume, tone right here, and I can take a look at that. And it looks like all factory soldering. You know, the solder joints look pretty clean. Nothing weird in here that I see. They didn't leave us a ton of wire. That's pretty common. Anyhow, we'll pull this switch out of here and put a new one in it. We're back and we have the old switch pulled out of there. The new switch installed. I've got these solder joints done here, and as you can see, you can't really tell that anyone's been in here working on it. There's the solder joints there that I've done, these 3, and it looks really nice. Nice and clean solder joints, not a big glob of shit on there. Looks great. Here's the ground connection right here, and this will be the tone control for the bridge, the neck position pickup. Here we go. So we've gotten the switch replaced, and it works great. And I've gotten the pick guard back on it, and I've begun work on polishing and cleaning up the saddles, screws and all that. So that's all getting done. Cleaned up the top of this with some just regular old guitar polish. I didn't use any heavy-duty cleaner or sanitizer or anything like that. And as you can see, the guitar looks a whole lot nicer now. Isn't that amazing what a little bit of elbow grease will do? So, I have all the tone controls and volume controls back on the guitar and the correct orientation for a player to be able to look down and tell where his volume knob is. Not that anybody, guitar players, ever turn their volume knob, but anyhow, that's what that's for. When you're done playing a song, you do this. It's a pretty, so you're all the way up, volume loud, you're at 10, you get done playing a song and you do this, and your guitar's quiet. It's pretty cool. You should try it. Yeah, you get done, it's just whoop. Wow. Okay, watch. One more time, one rehearsal. Here we go. On blast and blaring loud out of the humbucker, just screaming loud, heavy metal. Whap! End of song. Done. Your guitar's quiet. Pretty amazing. That's a volume knob. It's on there for a reason. It's not meant to stay like that for years and never be touched. I mean, you can do that, but then you're that guy whose amp is buzzing and feeding back, and you're bitching at the sound guy because your guitar's squealing, and you know, it happens all the time. Next project on board for this is to clean up the neck and get a fret job done on this thing, or no, fret polish. We'll put it back together again. I'm gonna have to adjust the saddles here, do an intonation, string height, all that, get the Floyd Rose floating. And remarkably, I have a bar that fits this guitar. It's because that's how I roll. So it'll have a whammy bar too, and it'll be floating, and we'll see how that works. Here we are back inside the crate Electra. Here's the soldering that I did, the ground joint here, all of the connections here at the switch are nice and tidy and clean. The ground is nice and clean here. We extended these 2 wires to make sure they'll reach. The switch was a little further away than the old one, so we had to make these wires a little bit longer. I removed the old pieces that they had used. This is them right here. And we'll save those for another instrument. Eventually we'll recycle these pieces of wire. They'll get used on the interior of a guitar. So that's what the inside of the guitar looks like. Nice and tidy. Check the pickups and everything works. The pickup selector switch works, and the tone controls work perfectly, and the volumes work, or the volume works perfectly. There's a little edge around that with some dust and dirt that have collected on the outer edge of that pick guard. We'll clean all that up so it's invisible. There's some scratching in the paint, of course, and we'll have to do a little bit of polishing on that, get her all back in business. So it's time to batten down the hatches on this one, put away for another day if something gets broken or needs a little service. Also, you reused the original top on the switch so it matches. It came with a black switch. I didn't want to use that. This one's a little bit loose, so we'll fill that with a small speck of a popsicle stick.
on the interior of that. We will super glue that inside this switch. It comes on and off very easily with very little effort, so we'll need to tighten that up a bit and make it snug so it doesn't pop right off of there. Typically I'll use a piece of popsicle stick to wedge in there and solidify it with a little teeny drop of super glue. We don't glue the switches on because that needs to come off of there eventually for removal of the switch. So also have cleaned up the pickups, as you can see. If you want to revert back to the original portion of this video, you'll see how dirty these were, and now we've got them all polished up. So looking good, getting closer and closer. Next on the docket will be the pickup, or the neck. We'll clean that up, get that polished, and then get some strings on it and adjust the tremolo system. So a little bit of work to do, a little cleaning, a little polishing, and we'll be rolling. Well, we're back, and I have the saddles all cleaned and shined up, polished, nice and beautiful, nice and sparkly clean. And we've reattached our handle there for the pickup control. I'm going to wipe off the top of this tone knob, get that cleaned up, but you'll notice that those are all arranged nicely. So we're about ready for strings, and we'll do the neck relief. I've got the neck set perfectly flat. The truss rod in this guitar works perfectly. Takes a 4mm hex key. This wrench worked really wonderfully. So strings and a little bit more cleaning on that tone pot, and we'll move forward. The back guts of a crate STRAT style guitar. I'll clean all the dust out of here. And this thing is actually set up just right. The springs are straight in a line. They shouldn't ever go this one to here and this one to here. What that does is it makes this spring utterly useless. They should be spaced evenly. If you have 4 springs, put 2 on the outer edges of that. Then you have equal tension throughout the pull where the tension is on the springs. A little bit of dust and dirt down in here we'll brush out. We'll move forward with putting strings on this guitar. I'm going to do our low E through here. Sometimes they go. Sometimes you got to twist them a little. Oh hell, this one's playing hard to get. I'll be back. So we're strung up. Oh, do you hear that? Well, we're doing intonation. We're setting up this guitar so that the intonation in it is correct. You'll notice that I have this block here, and that is to block the trim to a height that allows the trim to float, so that you'll be able to pull back and bend pitch up and bend forward and bend the pitch down on the guitar string. So that's what that's all about, and that'll come out of there. And you notice I use a little tape on the body so as to not scratch it with my block. So the spacing here is exactly the thickness of this, which works out to about, in metric numbers, 3 millimeters. So that's where we're at with that. We'll be back with it intonated. So the crate Electra is done. You notice I have all the strings trimmed off, which means I'm done working on a guitar. That's the last thing I do, is trim off the excess strings on these. And it was funny, on this one I cut the high E string off while I was trimming the excess string off. Kind of stupid, so I had to put another one on there. The beauty of working at a guitar shop. Crate Electra is all done. Check out the polished frets. I used a set of Ernie Ball Slinky 10 to 46 strings, the green package everybody's very familiar with, most popular string on earth. Humbucker single new tremolo bar for the guitar. I have a spring to put inside there. I have that at home, so I'll drop that in there so that the arm stays nice and solid in position. Cleaned off the tone controls. All the chrome is nice and polished. We've intonated it with the Peterson strobe tuner. Beautiful tool. Does the perfect job on intonation for a guitar. This one is as perfectly intonated as it can be.
Remove the dings in the finish up in here. You can see that. Scratch is all gone. Polished all the hardware. Polished up the body of the guitar. It's nice and shiny now. The guitar is ready to go home. Give it one last full Monty look. There's the whole guitar. And again, I'd like to repeat that this guitar was purchased for 40 bucks. Put a couple of hours of time into this instrument to bring it back to life. New strings, fix the pickup switch here, 5-way switch. Did some cleanup on the electronics on the inside. Rewired a few things. You can check back in the video if you want to look at that. So the guitar is done, and I'm going to let it hang overnight and acclimatize to the adjustments. We'll recheck all of our dimensions. 5/64ths here on the low E string at the 17th fret, 3/64ths on the high E string, and they're graduated to follow the radius of the neck down here, and all of the saddles are set perfectly level, and they follow the radius of the fretboard. This guitar is as good as, or better than most Strats you might buy at Guitar Center. It's set up perfectly. Shiny and new, ready for some guitar playing action. Let's take one look here also at the floating trem, which is set to my specs. I set it up to Fender specs, and I just wasn't getting enough pull, so I raised that distance between the body and the bottom of that saddle. So that we can get enough pull on these to bend it up a full step. You can almost get a step and a half out of that. Very nice action on the Floyd, and you know, surprisingly, playing it after stretching the strings and doing all that, the guitar holds tune remarkably well. Pickup heights are set to Fender specifications, and they sound very balanced. Sound really nice. So we are done with the Crate Electra guitar. So thanks for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something.